Now on Radio 4, it's time for You and Yours with Peter White.
Hello, welcome to Radio 4's Consumer Programme. Today, the drug with a high success rate. Problem is you have to wait to get it until you've become seriously ill. A new drug seen as a major step forward in the treatment of hepatitis C is only being offered to people with the most serious of liver conditions. Harvoni, that's its trade name, is expensive. A 12-week course of treatment costs £36,000, but it's achieved a 90% success rate. Alf Little has got in touch with us. He contracted hepatitis C after being given an NHS blood transfusion back in the 1970s. But the NHS is not allowing him access to Harvoni.
I had a minor operation in 1978. I'm a haemophiliac, and because of that, I had to have blood products before and after the operation. When they started screening for Hep C, which wasn't until about 20 years ago, they discovered I had it, and they narrowed it down to the blood product that I was given.
Now, you've been given compensation for this, haven't you?
Yeah, I've received £20,000 from the Skipton Fund.
Which is a fund set up specifically for people in your situation.
Yes.
Now, can you just tell us, how has hepatitis C affected you in your day-to-day life?
In all honesty, it hadn't affected me at all up until I had drug treatment in 2011, 2012. I was on a 72-week course of pegylated interferon and ribavirin, which had horrible side effects: anemia, mouth ulcers, itchy skin. I scratched until I bled, nausea. So
horrible stuff, really, a bit like some of the treatments that you have for cancer.
A milder form, I would say, yeah. And once the treatment stopped, the virus was undetectable. Unfortunately, 6 months later it came back. But since I finished the treatment, those side effects, less seriously, have persisted.
Now, you got in touch with us because you were frustrated at not being given this new Harvoni drug about which such claims have been made. So what have you been told about that drug?
I've been told that for people like me with genotype 1 Hep C, who are responders, relapsers, that is, we've cleared the virus and it's come back, this drug clears more than 90%.
So you obviously would have felt that this was the answer to your problem.
I do, yeah. They're touting it as a cure.
And what were your expectations?
Well, after I'd finished the previous drug treatment, we knew that these new drugs were coming along, and I go to regular clinics, and we were just waiting for them to be licensed and funded. And the last clinic I went to in June, I was expecting to be told, yeah, away we go, you're on it. But at the moment, they're only giving it to people who have developed cirrhosis, and they wouldn't give it to me until my Hep C turns into a potentially life-threatening condition.
What do you feel about this decision, given the circumstances in which you got the Hep C?
I'm disgusted. I think that they have a moral obligation. If they have accepted that it's their fault that I've got it, then surely they should treat me. I understand the financial implications. The drug's expensive. But if I were to develop cirrhosis and possibly liver cancer, how much would it cost then for further medication and possibly a liver transplant?
Alf Little. Well, we spoke to NICE. They make the decision on whether drugs are cost effective to be funded. We also spoke to NHS England, who are responsible for funding the drugs if NICE gives them the go ahead. We've found out that NICE, that's the National Institute for Health Clinical Excellence, has effective treatment for hepatitis. They feel that Harvoni is a cost-effective treatment for hepatitis C patients, but because NHS England said they would have trouble funding the treatment, they've agreed to prioritise the most severely affected patients. Well, Charles Gore is the chief executive of the Hepatitis C Trust. Charles, how will this new drug make a difference?
Well, it's a shorter course of treatment than previously, much milder side effects, so not like the side effects that Alf was talking about. and much more effective. So many more people would be cured.
So what do you make of the decision by NICE and NHS England only to offer this to the most severe cases?
Well, if I may say so, it's a little more complex than that, because NICE are actually looking at it at the moment. They're doing an evaluation. And NHS England, because of their budget pressures, which I'm very sympathetic, asked that NICE would, in fact, restrict it. Now, that is actually going through a decision process at the moment. However, in the meanwhile, before it has gone through NICE, NHS England have put in place a sort of early access programme for people with the most advanced disease to make sure that they got it right now before NICE have decided, which actually is a really good thing to do, because clearly the big problem, or at least one of the big problems with hepatitis C, is that over the last 15 years, the annual number of people dying from it has quadrupled. So you want to treat the people with the most advanced disease immediately. And then,
but of course, in Alf's case, that still means that he has to wait, and he clearly feels that there's a moral element to his case because of the way in which he contracted hepatitis C.
I think that, he's been in a very unfortunate situation, and Lord Morris called this the worst treatment disaster ever in the history of the NHS, that so many people with haemophilia were infected with hepatitis C and some even with HIV as well. So there is clearly an issue there, but then a lot of people got hepatitis C through very unfortunate incidents in other ways. But I do understand that he feels that the government should act now. But I think what they're doing is letting it go through the NICE process, which we could talk about in a moment.
Well, can I just ask you this? In Alf's case, and this is about, economic logic in a way, in Alf's case, if his liver does reach a stage of cirrhosis, he will get thousands of pounds more compensation from the NHS than he's already been given. This is under an agreement. Would it not make more financial sense to spend that money on a potentially very effective treatment rather than compensation, which might end up as more money?
Well, of course, in his individual case, but he said that he'd been very lucky before treatment. It really had had no impact on his life. But there are some people who are very, very symptomatic and are not able to work as a result of hepatitis C. So treating them too, in terms of them going back to work, paying taxes and so on, would also make economic case. Right. So he's not the only one there. So
quite briefly, Charles, if you would, what's the timescale then for people who are in his situation and the people you've just mentioned? When might they be able to receive treatment?
Well, that's the really good news. A couple of weeks ago, NICE came out with their draft guidance on this drug, and actually on some other drugs too, because there isn't just one that's going to be available. And they said that despite NHS England wanting to restrict it, it's not going to be restricted. And unless that changes, he should have access to it in the middle of January.
Good to end on some good news. Charles Gore, thank you very much indeed. And our thanks to Alf Little for contacting the programme.